It's a delight to welcome tonight Chris Parker. Chris, how are you doing?
I'm great, thank you, and thanks for having me on.
You are very welcome. I thank you for doing it. I think this is a great opportunity, um, not only to be able to tell your testimony, but also for the church to get to know you a little bit better as well. And it's a great opportunity for that. So, Chris, let's get straight into it. Let's go right back. Not all the way back. We won't go back to when you were a kid. um, but before you became a Christian, Chris, how would you describe your life and the kind of person you were?
Uh, I was pretty much like most people. I worked for a living. Had a couple of jobs. My dad was in the army, so we moved around a lot. I was, I think I was pretty average Joe, really. I went to farming college, finished there, didn't like it, got a job in a big hardware store, kind
Was that
of
the one in
just,
Durham, the Farming College?
yeah, Hoffel.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know why. For some reason, I've been there a few times. I can't think of why.
Yeah, I did 3 years at Hoffel. Didn't graduate, but I did the 3 years, and then I started to work in a hardware store for a while in Darlington, but not really any thought of God, to be fair.
Hmm.
I'd been like everyone to hatches, matches, and dispatches. That was kind of my experience of church. I did work with a guy who was actually a Mormon,
Right.
and probably that was my first real introduction to God, in a way that anybody ever talked about God in there every day. We'd all sit in a barn eating our lunch on the farm, and he would have to stop because he was praying. One of those annoying people who prayed over his food. Things like that. So it was kind of an odd thing, really, that this experience, and then we kind of went our separate ways, and I've often thought about. I've met him once or twice over the years, and we have some nice talks. But that was all it was. I mean, I was kind of taught as a young man. You do right by your family. If you can look at yourself in the mirror in the morning, you're okay. And so that was kind of my life, really. That's how I lived.
Yeah. So I guess, in a sense, a life no different to a huge amount of people out there now. I mean, just an average. Nothing
No,
dramatic.
nothing dramatic. No, I got married at 20. I met my wife. We got married fairly quickly. Um, we met and married in 11 weeks.
That is fairly quickly.
And so people thought that Ethna was pregnant and things like that, which she wasn't. And yeah, we were 20 years old, and we were just, like I said, we just worked for a living, and just like everyone else, really, until we were 30.
And that's when things change. And it didn't change for you first, did it, Chris? It actually you a common story. It wasn't you that was first in the household to get saved.
No, no, it wasn't. We we had we have two children, a boy and a girl, James and Kim, and we didn't own a car. We didn't really have any money in that sense. We were okay, but we didn't have that kind of money. So we would the local Assemblies of God church. They started a mother and toddler group on an evening, a toddler play school for an hour, and it was just within walking distance of Morrison's. So we would take the kids for 50p, leave them for an hour, go shopping, and pick the kids up on the way back. And it kind of worked really well. And that kind of went on for a while. And then the church started a craft club. And the craft club was, I can't remember the times, but it was something like 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock
Right.
for single moms or moms with children. They could go take the kids would play in the hall, and the women would knit or sew or learn to make meals or just something to encourage them. And Ethna decided to go because we had the two children by then.
It's good to highlight that just as we do, because sometimes you question, you can question the validity of these kinds of outreaches. Sometimes do they have an effect? But clearly, this had an impact on Ethna.
Yeah, I mean, she went for a year, and it was genuinely, people told us, because afterwards, they said, we were heard from God. We prayed for Ethna every week before the meeting, because she was really, there was only one or two unsaved come in, and they were told by God not to witness to her.
Right. Wow.
And so
Wow.
every time somebody tried, they told us this at the church after we became Christians. Every time somebody tried, something happened to stop it. So after this year, around a year, Ethna kind of came home one night and said, "Those people have got something I want that I
Wow.
just don't have."
Wow.
Now, I had, that's her story kind of, but I had been once. My kids were, like I said, they were in the playgroup, and they won a prize. You know how church, everybody wins a prize, so all the parents come. Well, Ethna was working, so I had to go. And I was like, I went in, and those guys were the happy clappers. You know what I mean? I mean, nobody's that happy. This is ridiculous. There was about 150 people in church, and they were all clapping and singing and standing up. And I was just sat there going, is this over yet? I need to get out of here. These people are crazy, because nobody's that happy. The Christians are annoyingly happy, And I can remember sitting with the kids, and the minute it was over, I got out the door. And, so when Ethna came 6 months later and said, "Those people have got something I want. I've decided to go to church with them," I just said, "Don't bring that home. I don't want it in the house. Those people are crazy. So I don't want you to bring it home,
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, Ethna goes off to church, and she gets saved that night, the first time she ever went to church, or to that church, because before that she was in the Catholic Church. And so she came home after this happy clappy meeting with a face like thunder.
Right.
Really not happy. So I was like, the type of guy I was like, "Hey, I thought you'd been to the happy clappies. What's up with your face? You look like you've lost a tenner and found 5p, And she said, "No, you don't understand. I gave my heart to the Lord tonight, and you're a sinner, and you're going to hell."
Wow. Wow.
So you can imagine I wasn't overly happy with that.
How did you respond to that?
Actually, very badly. I was so angry because, we know what sinners are. They're in jail. They beat their wives. They go to the pub and get drunk and don't give their families any money. I wasn't like that. I was one of those guys. I handed over my pay in the envelope unopened. Not because I was scared, but because that was the thing to do, And I thought I was a good guy. So, of course, like all men, I had measured myself against other men. So I would look for the worst person in society or in the news and say, well, at least I'm not like that.
Yeah.
So, of course, when Ethna comes home and says you're a sinner, I can't see that image of myself. But Ethna, being as she is, said, right, well, I'm going to church on Sunday and you're coming to help look after the kids. So, yeah, and so I would go to church on a Sunday and sit with the kids always at the back on the corner near the door. Because, my kids were like 3 and 4, 4 and 5. I was able to say, "You want sweets?" And as soon, because it's Pentecostal, as soon as they start singing, you can get out the door, you know what I mean? And they're just going to all be into it. They're happy clappies, you know what I mean? They're all taken up with the worship. So I would just slip out. And then we'd go out, go for a walk, get the sweets, come back. But again, with Pentecostals, once they start singing again, it's time to slip back in after the sermon, So we kind of got quite good at it. This went on for about 6-8 weeks. So we just slip out with the kids because they don't, bless them, So they were my excuse to get out, And so then one week we had come and I got moved down the row by the old ladies. That's my seat. It was a baptism night, or it was a special service. So I can remember being separated from the children.
Right.
Which, of course, is, was my only escape thing.
Yeah, they were like your shield.
So there's like me, 3 or 4, 5 people, Ethna and the children. And I'm right in the middle of the row, I couldn't get out. And then a lady who's gone to glory now, she actually stood up after the second song and said, "You think that these people are crazy. And and everything I was thinking, she was saying.
Wow.
And you can imagine, I was just freaking out. I was like, what's going on? So I'm sitting there, I'm like, what's going on? This is weird. How do they know this? So she sat down, they sang another song. And then a second lady, who's also gone to glory now, stood up and said, and now you're thinking, I got to say, I was pretty like, whoa, what do I do with this? So she sits down, and now I'm sweating, and I'm like, this is like, what is this place? Where am I? And then they sang a song, and the older ones among us will remember the song. I don't know if you still sing it, but this was the song. You laid aside your majesty, gave up everything for me. You suffered at the hands of those you have created.
Good song.
You took all my guilt and shame when you died and rose again. And I started to cry. I mean, like a baby. There was snot, tears. It was like I had a white shirt, because everybody goes to church in a white shirt. Well, they had to buy a white shirt to go to church. And I just was just this big wet stain of snot and tears. And people kept saying to Ethna, is he all right? And she was like, not with me, I was weeping. I don't remember anything else. I knew in an instant, Lou, that I don't know the Greek for horse. I don't know that stuff like that. I know Jesus died for me. In that moment, I understood very clearly that Jesus died for me. He knows who I am. He knows what I've done. He knows those things you hope nobody knows. And the things that sometimes stop us and hold us back. And I understood in the singing of that song, and I wept. And part of my story is that I wept a lot after that. But in that meeting, I don't remember. I remember who preached because we became friends. I honestly don't remember anything other than people were getting up and leaving, and I couldn't see for crying.
Wow.
I just understood what I had been pushing away all my life.
Wow. And it was like that.
It really was. Yeah. There was things to sort out because I needed to come to understanding. I need to, what is the word and what does that mean, and the Holy Spirit. I didn't understand any of that. I mean, obviously I do now, but in that moment I understood that Jesus died for me. It was a truth.
Wow.
I've never lost that all these years. I've been a Christian for nearly 30 years, and I just have to close my eyes and think about it, and I understand it.
That's wonderful. That must be it must have been an amazing thing for Ethna to see. She's been spending all this time concerned for you, dragging you along, wondering if anything will break through, and then it just happens in a moment.
Yeah. It was wonderful that we were able to share it. That it became something that we began to go through life together in faith.
That's wonderful. You've never looked back.
No.
I guess question I have is that change happened fairly quickly in a sense. When did you start feeling that you were being drawn into doing a lot more and getting involved ministry wise and things like that? When did that sort of develop for you?
That journey, there was a couple of things that really happened, and I don't want to take up too much time because, but very shortly after we got saved, there was actually a tent meeting at Aycliffe. In those days, they had the big marquees that they would put between Darlington and Aycliffe, and it was Woodham Church then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Ethna went, and I had a dream that we would serve the Lord on mission, but it was a dream and I didn't fully understand it. We'd been saved literally months. Ethna went to the tent meeting that summer, and she was wearing my rugby shirt, which I always say that blessing was for me, but anyway. So the preacher was Ian Green, and he just pointed at her and said, "You in the rugby shirt." And she was behind a big pole, so she was hiding. And he said, "No, you hiding behind, stand up." And he said, "God has got the call of God is on your life." you will not be a normal, pew-filling, sing a new chorus type of Christian.
Wow. Wow.
God has called you. And then he said, has God spoken to you? And he said, no, my husband had a dream that we were missionaries. And he said, God will fulfill it.
Wow.
And we'd only been saved weeks, months.
Wow. So it was early on.
Yeah, very early. Yeah. I mean, there was a lot to do in that time. I mean, I had always felt called to serve God's people almost from very early. And I don't know why I would call that, because I had no formal education. I had no. So I kind of said to God, I can't do that. I went out like many of us do. I just went for a walk and I said to God, I don't understand, because, you need to help me with this. I have quite severe dyslexia, and, I said, you need to help me. I don't understand how you would. Obviously, we can't always see what God's going to do, how he's going to do it. And he said, if you're willing, I will teach you myself.
Wow.
And almost within a month or less, the challenge came on my heart to go and lay bricks, to learn. I don't know. So I said to God, no, I can't do that. I haven't got any money. Can't afford that. It was a 6-week course, 25 quid, And I just said to God, well, I can't do that, Lord. Obviously, I haven't got any money. So a knock came on the door the next day. Here's 25 quid. God's told me to give you this. I don't know what it's for.
Wow.
So even though we needed money, Ethna said to me, no, you that's what that's for. So afterward, I never laid another brick. Never. And I just said to God afterwards, weeks and months, I'm waiting for something dramatic to happen. So I went one day to the church was empty, and I said to God, I don't understand, I did it, you asked me to do it. Can I ask what it was for? So God really spoke to my heart. He said, I wanted to see if you were listening.
Wow. Wow.
We don't always have to understand it. Sometimes it's like, God, I wanted to see if I asked you, you'd do it. And that was it. I understood what he meant. And so, when he asked me to train as a pastor, I cried for 3 days. I went before him on my knees and I asked him to take it from me, because when you're dyslexic, it's very difficult to study. Not that I've avoided study. I've always tried to study the Bible and done my best in that sense that I can. And I've become a teacher of the word, which is astonishing, and a whole other testimony.
And that's, like I say, there's a whole miracle and God breakthrough there. We'll get to that one sometime, eh?
Yeah, man. Yeah. So that's really when we knew those events.
Wonderful. And I don't want to dig too much into the time that you spent in Iceland, because I think that's a great story for another time, and maybe not the focus for tonight. But I guess if you had to share one highlight of the things you've seen God do, just something that you look back now and you go, wow, God, you're amazing. What would that be?
There are many things, like you said, and obviously it was 20 years of mission, so there's always a lot. Somebody asked me, name one thing recently that they said, say something that made it all worth it, because there's a price to pay, and those who've been on mission will understand separation from family and stuff. I had organized a camp. I did a lot with youth and children's work, and I'd organized a camp on an island near Iceland. We went over to the island with the youth. We had the meeting, and it was good. It was very good. We had about 50 to 70 youth camping, doing all that stuff. So, and it was a really big camp, but only one person got saved.
Yeah.
And we were kind of disappointed. We had big hopes. It'd been well advertised. We'd done a lot of work. This one young lady got saved and kind of went home a little bit deflated, And I remember saying to God, I don't understand, God. Everything was right. We were on fire. The meetings were amazing. The word was amazing. And then about a week later, Ethna and we got an email, and the young lady who got saved had written to me, and she said, I want to thank you for having the weekend. My mom died at Christmas. My brother committed suicide at Easter. My father's an alcoholic. I was on the way to kill myself when I met the children from the camp and decided to come to your camp. I mean, I was, hallelujah.
Wow.
And, you know, that one soul, she's still a Christian today. She's raising her children. She's married. She lives in Reykjavik now. And you just say to yourself, oh my gosh, because you don't see sometimes what God is doing. I didn't know any of that. But God saved her.
Wow. Wow. That's wonderful, Chris. That is absolutely wonderful. And that's got to be a high. Yeah. Wow. Wow. God's good, isn't he? He's so good.
Amen. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Just one last thing before we say goodbye to you.
Yeah.
The place you were in, you were living life. Your wife gets saved. You're skeptical.
Very,
if you were to
yeah.
say skeptical and a little bit angry, if you had an opportunity to say anything to someone who was in a similar position to you, what would it be?
Oh wow, that's tough. I think I was in a place where I thought I knew, and I wasn't willing to listen to anything else. It was that lack of willingness that had held me back, that lack of pride. And my pride had driven me. And, you know, when I finally met Jesus and I understood, you know, that it was that point at which I felt I was okay. And I wasn't able to hold myself up any longer. I wasn't able to do the things that, and as men, we do that. You know, I was the man of the house. You make the decisions. I've got 2 kids. I'm out working all the hours, got 3 jobs, trying to keep it. I'm trying to spin so many plates. And I realized that I can't do that. And I was breaking inside. You know, outside I looked fine. Outside I sounded like any other lad, you know, swearing and drinking and doing all the things that guys do. And inside I was hurting. And once I realized that Jesus saw that and he still loved me. Jesus just doesn't love, you know, he didn't love me as a Christian, he loved me as a broken man. And of course you have to let Jesus love you.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy, but it's always worth it.
Yeah.
If you're sitting on the fence, why? Why suffer? Why keep suffering? You know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was doing that. And I wasn't just hurting me, you know, I was hurting my family. And I was hurting my kids. Not in any physical way, but I was so busy taking up these other things and trying to keep all my plates spinning. And I'm glad it stopped.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for being so open and sharing everything. And I got to say, it's a delight. I mean, he's not on screen. Sorry. We've took you out for meals the last few times that you've been preaching at New Life before you came, and it's always been a pleasure to spend time with you and get to know you a little bit better. And it is now as well, even though it's at a distance. It's so good to get to know you that little bit better. And I really appreciate you sparing the time tonight as well, Chris.
It's been a real pleasure. God bless you. Really looking forward to what God has in the future as well.
Yeah, it's
and it's an exciting time.
We are, and it's it feels like we're in like this period of waiting at the moment. But I tell you what, it's going to be worth the wait.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited.
Wonderful. Bless you, Chris. Thank you, and
God bless you.
Bless you. Look forward to seeing you again soon.